Happy day before Mother's Day, 2021. Wow. We're moving right along. Soon we'll be through with this. I'm not sure whether I'm going to read another book after this one, but I'm enjoying bringing this one to you because it'll be out soon in a new edition, Homemade Magic. We're on now part 3, A Magical Lodge in Your Home. Now, this section is dominated by some images there, and I'm going to show them to you, and then I'm going to read the large caption. There's Constance lighting a big bowl of fire in our living room over when we lived over on Broadway. Isn't she pretty? Okay. The caption reads, the fire lighting ceremony from the opening of the Rite of Mars, circa 1986. Constance goes to the altar and conjures over a large bowl. And here's what she says. I swear by Jinn and by Shin and by the space between that I will not stir from this place until the fire of God hath flamed upon the water that is upon the altar. Dost thou hear, Brother Ash? By Aub, the witchery of the secret flame, by Aud, the subtlety of the inmost fluid, by Or, the effulgence of the radiant light, I call thee, Ash, Ash, I adore thee, Ash, 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 Ash. I caress thee, I kiss thee, I suck thee up into my mouth and nostrils. O Atan, O Atan, O Atan. Then she lights the flame. Behold the fire of God upon the altar, as I have sworn by Jinn and by Shin and by the space between. Constance does this very well. In fact, she blows everybody's mind. And I posted a picture of that. And just if you scroll down or go to my videos section out here on my Facebook page, you'll see this whole ceremony, her doing this, that we did last April 10th and posted April 10th. And you can see a whole movie of her doing this. Okay, this is the next picture. And this is at that same location over at our Broadway house where we were there for many years. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a white thing at the bottom. That is a large seashell that we use for our font. And there's the fire altar right in front of that, and then the super altar in back of that. Those tables that support the altar and font just are our living room end tables. Our living room / dining room cleared and set up for a celebration of the Gnostic Mass circa 1987. The Gnostic Mass is the central ceremony of the OTO, public and private. For years, Constance and I regularly celebrated this beautiful ritual in our home for lodge members and guests. Shown in this picture are the high altar and the super altar, with the required accoutrements, including a homemade stele of revealing in the center, 22 candles, roses, a cup, and a paten. Our living room end tables serve as our fire altar, seen here with the incense and censer. And our font is a large seashell seen in extreme foreground, along with a smaller seashell that holds the salt. Not seen in this picture are two pillars on each side of the high altar and the veil, which is closed in front of the high altar during part of the ceremony. The congregation sat on every chair we could round up and on our antique pew, and the floor cushions were arranged along the sides of the room. We could comfortably seat 20 congregants and uncomfortably accommodate 30. Now, I posted a picture of our present Gnostic Mass setup here at our home, just directly below this this posting this morning. So just scroll down and you can see a closer look at that. I've got to digress and say, in order to do and have a magic lodge in your home, you have to improvise with a lot of things, or we had to improvise with a lot of things. But we also made many uses for a great amount of black cloth, blue cloth, to serve as veils, to serve as altar tops. And early on, we would wrap up boxes and things like that with black cloth. And Constance was very good at making everything look exquisite. And just underneath, it's just funky things we had laying around the house. Okay. And speaking of a lot of black cloth, this next picture is from, we're partially setting up here for the Rite of Saturn from Crowley's Rites of Eleusis. And I don't know if you can see there, but there's the Saturn altar with the seal of Saturn, and there's a skull on top of it. And that is a real human skull that was legally attained from a medical device thing. It was used in car testing, and one of our lodge members worked for the company. And yeah, we got a human skull. I don't know if you can still do that nowadays, but we had several uses for that in the various rituals and initiations. The caption reads, "The dining room being transformed for an evening performance of the homemade Rite of Saturn, the first of 7 rites of Eleusis," and this was circa 1985. Even the rehearsals for these homemade rituals become master classes in magic, mythology, and astrology. Because the rites tell the mythological and astrological stories of the 7 traditional planetary spheres, 2 officers in each rite are identified as the zodiac sign that the planet rules or is exalted in. In this photo, Constance has just set up 2 chairs, borrowed from Jean-Paul's bedroom, to be thrones for Brother Aquarius and Capricorn. Saturn rules Aquarius and Capricorn. Behind the veil, representing the abyss on the Kabbalistic tree of life, is the throne of Saturn. The Saturn altar, seen between the pillars, displays the seal of Saturn on the magic square of Saturn and supports a human skull, real and perfectly legal, surrounded by red roses. The pillar in the center of the dining room holds a brass bowl that will be filled with alcohol and burned during the ceremony. The room is festooned with sprigs of bougainvillea, which I quietly snipped from the neighborhood. Okay, now that's very short. uh, because it actually was just an expanded captions of those photos. I'm going to start to read chapter 11, which is entitled, Think You Have Nowhere to Go to Learn Magic? Start teaching what you wish to learn. And it starts off with, I don't know if you can, if I could show you, I don't know how to do that, but let's see. There it is. That's the charter for our lodge. Signed January 7th, 1978. And here's what it says. OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, Charter, Haru Raha Lodge. Peace, tolerance, truth, salutation on all points of the triangle, respect to the order. To all whom it may concern, greeting and health. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Oyez, oyez, oyez. Know ye all that I, Caliph Hymenaeus Alpha, do hereby certify, acknowledge, and proclaim our brother Lon Milo DuQuette is authorized to establish and maintain a lodge of OTO in the Valley of Orange County, California, and to accept, initiate, and instruct individuals living in or near said valley, subject only to agreeable regulations that may be proposed by the Caliph. Loves the law, love under will. Witness my hand and seal this day, January 7th, 1978, EV. Signed and sealed. Hymenaeus Alpha, Ordo Templi Orientis, Caliph. And the epigram for this little chapter is a short quote from the Course of Miracles. The cost of giving is receiving. During a recent radio interview, I was asked the question, you've written 16 books on subjects relating to ceremonial magic. Your biography says you've taught magic for 35 years. Just what are your credentials to speak with authority on this unusual subject? It was a good question and one that deserved a good answer. Frankly, I didn't have one. I've had no formal instructions or training in any spiritual disciplines. I hold no academic degrees. I've attended no seminary. Hell, I only graduated from high school because I had the lead in the school musical. I scrambled for an on-air response. The best I could come up with was one that sounded impressive enough at the time, but it was a bit misleading and not altogether accurate. This is what I said. I've just been interested in magic and the occult since my late teens. And in the 1970s, I was lucky enough to come in contact with three people, Israel Regardi, Phyllis Seckler, and Grady McMurtry, who were once students of the great English magician Aleister Crowley. After about 30 years of just studying and practicing what I loved, I woke up one morning and realized that most of the people in the world who knew more than I about this stuff were now dead. Well, up to a point, all of that was true. I did indeed know and study with these three famous and legendary magicians. I benefited immeasurably from their counsel and instruction. Phyllis was actually my formal AA superior. These magical heroes and mentors, however, did not actually teach me magic. In fact, I really didn't start to learn magic until I started to teach magic. As I mentioned earlier, Constance and I have been active in the magical organization Ordo Templi Orientis since the mid-1970s. In January of 1978, I was authorized to charter a lodge of OTO, initiate individuals into the order, and host events and such as classes. Gnostic masses and social activities. So, the charter of our lodge has evolved, the character of our lodge has evolved over the years, along with the growth of this remarkable and sometimes controversial organization. Early on, Constance and I, by virtue of our relative seniority in the tiny, newly resurrected OTO, were needed to initiate members into the lower degrees. A few years later, as other initiatory bodies began to form around the country and the world, we were needed to initiate members into the higher degrees. Eventually, more and more initiates could fulfill those functions, and our focus turned to our other organizational areas that needed our attention. These duties were not burdens we bore for the sake of our magical evolution. On the contrary, it was as if the universe was anticipating our every personal magical need, and our work in the order was simply the most convenient way for us to fulfill and work out those issues on the material plane. Obviously, there are very few people in the world who will ever find themselves in the particular position we found ourselves in, and I admit that our case was and is relatively unique. Nevertheless, our involvement in a highly structured magical organization does not in any way exempt us from the necessity of creating, building, and sustaining our magical world and careers from scratch, out of entirely homemade elements. Our lodge, Haru Raha Lodge OTO, is the oldest local body chartered by a Grand Lodge in the order. In the last 35 years, it's over 40 now, we've hosted over 1,700 classes and performed hundreds of initiations, Gnostic masses and other ceremonies, some very complex, requiring multiple rooms festooned with elaborate furnishings. We fed multitudes of hungry candidates and initiates and hosted scores of public lectures, workshops, plays, feasts, weddings, memorials, and celebrations. All these events, sometimes as many as 5 a week, were held in our home. And while we raised a wonderful son to manhood, and while I worked a full-time job and Constance worked a part-time job, for 35 years, our modest rented house, our living room, our dining room, our bedroom, our garage, our backyard, has been abbey, temple, monastery, preceptory, cathedral, rectory, classroom, lecture hall, chapel, prophet's house, initiation chamber, magic space, holy ground. Our furniture has always had to do double duty. End tables transformed into altar and font. Decorative swords, lances, and banners are pulled from the walls and wielded in sacred ceremonies. Dining room tables serve as altars or are crowned and adorned with blazing bowls of fire and statues and secret symbols, household items that, after the mystic ceremony is over, quietly return to their camouflage stations as quaint household items and grandma's curious bric-a-brac. DuQuette magic is patently homemade. We know of no other way to operate. When you enter our home, which has been described as Beatrix Potter meets H.P. Lovecraft, you enter a temple, but you also enter a school. And that's where we'll drop it for today, and we'll pick it up tomorrow for Mother's Day. I hope you're all being good to your mother if you still have one. Mine passed away quite a few years ago, but I posted a picture of her today. You can take a look at that. She made it to 94 years old, and she was definitely quite a character, as you might imagine. Anyway, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.